Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker, and you are listening to episode number 67, or you're watching it on YouTube. Today's Sunday, October 22nd, and I am joined, as sometimes the case, by my co-host all the way up in New Jersey, who's sitting on the floor because you gotta make some modern day comfort sacrifices when family's in town. Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feeling this Sunday evening, my friend?
I'm good, Bill. I got some work done for the week. I got to run to Target later, but that's just to pick up a few things. And Bill, you said it, man. I'm sitting on a giant king-size mattress in the middle of what used to be my office because my grandparents are in town. But happy to have them. The food's been awesome. I'm probably going to put on a few pounds, but I don't have a problem with that because I have been working out a little bit more. So,
There you go.
Bill, that's been about the most exciting part of my week is just having my grandparents over because I'm not gonna lie to you, Bill, last night's card just it didn't do it for me. But before we get into that, Bill, how have you been doing? Because I know you had the hurricane a few weeks ago, and we've both been going through a bit of a hard patch, but things are looking up for both of us, finally.
Yeah. Things are starting to look up. I got a lot going on, trying to prepare for this baby coming. Only less than 3 months away, Jeff. I don't think I can have enough bourbon in the house to prepare. But just lots of things going on. Going to be moving to a new house next month. It's looking like deal's going to close early November, so I'll be moving to Safety Harbor, Florida, and I'm really excited about that. Get settled somewhere before the baby comes, and I've been kind of fixing up the condo where we stay now to get it ready to rent it out. So refinishing cabinets and refurbishing furniture and all fun stuff like that. Lots of trips to Lowe's and Home Depot and things that I'm very excited about doing. I hope that sounded genuine. Because Jeff, there's a thing, and I read about this in like pregnancy preparation books and stuff. There's this phase of pregnancy called nesting, which involves, the mother of the soon-to-be-born child wanting to set up a space for the baby, but it also involves her wanting to do-it-yourself projects all the time. So I have involuntarily been recruited to participate in these do-it-yourself projects or do them myself because certain things have to get done to prepare. And, like anything else, I just deal with it with lots of bourbon and lots of tools, which isn't always the best combination, but I find it works for me. So that's what's been going on with me, Jeff. Lots of moving around. So this might be one of the last podcasts from here. I hope to have a new studio set up in the new house. And then next week, I will be in Arizona. So anybody who lives in Arizona or has been there before, I'm definitely looking for some recommendations. I'm going to be out there for a little over a week. Going to go see the Grand Canyon, Phoenix, Flagstaff, Sedona, a couple of other places. I'll be bouncing around. I will probably do an episode from out there. But please send me your recommendations at MMA on the Rocks on Twitter and anywhere else on social media. Let me know where to go get some good whiskey drinks and some good craft beer. So I'll be looking forward to that. That's going to be like the last hurrah trip before the baby comes, and then it's time to buckle down, more DIY projects, moving into a new house, and then this little one's going to be here before I know it. But let's get into some MMA talk, Jeff, because that's why we're here after all. I know some people wanted us to talk about some personal things on the show. That's been a pretty consistent request, but this is an MMA program. So let's get into the card. Last night was UFC Fight Night 118 from Gdansk, Poland. Gdansk. Am I saying that right, Jeff?
Bill, I am not Polish, and I don't have too many Polish friends, so I'm gonna go ahead and say you're saying it correctly.
Yeah, let's go. Gdansk. Gdansk. All right. So it's headlined by Darren Till, fairly unknown fighter, and Donald Cerrone, one of the most well-known fighters on the planet Earth. I don't know if I had said this on the show or not, but this is a tough matchup for Donald Cerrone because here's a guy in Darren Till who's tough to take down. Cerrone has some creative wrestling, but let's be real. He's not a wrestler. He has some awesome submissions off his back if he gets taken down. But his problem areas seem to be with guys who pressure him on the feet. And Cowboy's also a slow starter. So this is a really bad matchup for him off the bat because Darren Till throws straight punches. He pressures forward, and he hits really fucking hard, which is a bad matchup for Cowboy because the guys that Cowboy does well against on the feet are guys who are a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, and maybe don't hit as hard. So he can kind of get a rhythm going in the second and third rounds, or guys who take him down and then he's able to submit them off his back. So guys with good takedown defense and who pressure a lot on the feet, like Darren Till, are a bad matchup. And this is a bad match for Cowboy Cerrone because Darren Till is not really a known fighter. There were even a lot of MMA analysts in the past week who were like, who is this guy? And he's got an impressive record. He's 16-0-1, one draw, and that was in the UFC. And he's got some crazy finishes. He's got ridiculous knockout power. But the problem with fighting an unknown fighter is if you win, great, you were expected to win because more people know who you are. And if you lose, it's like, well, why did you lose to this guy? Nobody knows who he is. So it's really kind of a lose-lose situation for Cowboy. He came in looking really flat. As I said, he's a slow starter, and he just didn't have a chance to find a rhythm. Darren Till just wouldn't let him get settled. Till said he was going to try and drag this into deep waters, but he wound up catching Cowboy and just smashing his face with a really vicious elbow. I don't remember the last time I remember seeing Cowboy's face broken up like that. I mean, he was really battered in the Robbie Lawler fight, but this was a whole different story. So really impressive performance from Darren Till, and I guarantee a lot of people know who he is now. That's no excuse for not knowing who he was before, but hey, that's the game. So what were your thoughts on this main event here in Poland, Jeff?
Yeah, Bill, this was a crazy main event, dude. Darren Till looking super calm in there, looking like, like a veteran against Donald Cerrone. And, I think Till did a good job. His striking was really good. And I think Donald Cerrone's mistake was to keep it on the feet. But like you said, Till's got good takedown defense. So, Darren Till doing a good job picking Cerrone apart, really. And it was interesting because Darren Till was a southpaw, which I was unaware of. So, Bill, I got to ask you something. Do you think that Donald Cerrone do you think he should kind of tone it down a little bit? Because he's been taking a lot of fights over the last couple of years, and I think it's starting to wear on him a little bit. I think his body's starting to feel it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point and one that's definitely going to come up a lot. I think that's kind of up to him. I think after this one, he's definitely going to need some recovery time. I'm sure he had a pretty lengthy medical suspension. I haven't heard what it is yet, but I think he feels that when he stays more active, he's able to develop some momentum, and it helps with the nerves going into the cage and things like that. But then, like you said, it does take its toll when he's fighting, on every other card, it seems like. And yeah, he probably should pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, if you're fighting 5, 6, I think he's even fought 7 times in a calendar year one time. That's insane. But it's also what you have to love about Cowboy Cerrone, and the fact that he took this fight against a virtually unknown fighter in Darren Till just because the UFC called him and said, hey, you want to fight in Poland? And he just says yes. He probably doesn't even need to know the opponent. He'll just get in there with anybody. And that's one of the most respectable things about Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and that's why he's such a big fan favorite. And, I know you and I are big fans of him for that reason, Jeff, because he'll just step in there, 155 pounds, 170 pounds, put somebody in there across from him. And he's been in there with some monsters. over his career. I think over 20 UFC fights if you count WEC appearances as well, since the UFC had bought the WEC years ago. But yeah, I think as he's getting a little older, he's starting to push into his upper 30s. He definitely needs to start training smarter, which I hear he has been doing. He doesn't spar as hard anymore and probably fight a little less frequently. But it's hard to answer that for him, because if that affects his mental state, if he's not fighting frequently and he feels like that affects his psychology of fighting, then that's kind of on him. So after this fight, I'm trying to think of the name of the broadcaster, the former fighter. Help me out here, Jeff.
Dan Hardy?
Yeah, Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy asked Darren Till who he wanted next, and he called out Platinum Mike Perry, who's a fun fighter to talk about. And then these two started screaming at each other. Mike Perry jumped up on the apron of the octagon and he started saying, "I'm a real welterweight. This is my weight class." I'm not really sure what that means, but it was sure as fuck entertaining, and I would love to see that fight. Of course, Mike Perry scheduled to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio, which is also going to be an awesome fight. So welterweight division shaping up to be really exciting right now. We got a lot of great contenders for a division that has had really boring championship fights over the last year and a half or so. So it's good to see some of these young, hungry guys mixing it up in here. And Darren Till versus Mike Perry would be awesome. Darren Till versus Santiago Ponzinibbio would be awesome. So I don't see why you don't give Darren Till the winner of that fight. I feel like it's reaching down the ladder a little bit because he just fought Cowboy Cerrone. So he maybe should have called out somebody a little further up than Cowboy. I think he went down a few rungs, but hey, those are exciting fights, and I'm definitely tuning in for those. So what were your thoughts about the post-fight antics there, Jeff?
Yeah, I love it, man. Anything that gets the crowd riled up, I love. But I saw an interview with Mike Perry this morning, actually, and I think he should just be banned from, or get a restraining order for him and microphones. Because I forgot who was interviewing him. I think it was Dan Hardy, and he says, he's like, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna sign the contract, and then we're gonna fight because that's what's gonna happen. So I'm like, oh man, he's just not very. He's just so bad at language.
Yeah, but that's also what makes him so good. It's just so, like, it's just unscripted entertainment, and he's funny. And I know we were critical of him when he first came on the scene in the UFC, and me especially, because he's fought one of my teammates before in the local circuit here in Florida. But man, the guy's growing on me, I gotta say. I mean, he just says the most ridiculous shit, and it's really entertaining. I hate to admit it, but he's entertaining when he's in the cage. You never know what's going to happen, but you know he's always working hard for the knockout. So go ahead, carry on with your point there, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, you're absolutely right. I was gonna say, despite that, though, I definitely want to see him fight. That's something he is good at. So Darren Till versus Mike Perry. I'll pay to watch it. So I say let's do it after his fight with Ponzinibbio. Put him on a card.
Yeah, and we got some other exciting fights coming up in the welterweight division as well, which we'll get into when we talk about Fight Night 119 after this. So I know you weren't too enthused about this card, Jeff. I wasn't really either. I had a lot going on, so I kind of breezed over it after the fact. I mean, it was on in the middle of the day on a Saturday, so it was tough for me to watch. So I caught the main event, caught the co-main event with Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Invicta staple Jody Esquivel. That was a pretty solid scrap, but Karolina Kowalkiewicz, just like the volume of punches was crazy, reminiscent of the strawweight champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It was great that the Polish crowd got to see Karolina Kowalkiewicz on there, which is the next best thing to seeing Joanna get to fight in Poland. I'm sure she's disappointed she wasn't on this card, but that's because she's fighting on the New York card next month, which is going to be one of the biggest cards of the year or of all time, possibly, which I know you're going to want to break down when we get closer to it since you'll be attending, Jeff. So what were your thoughts on the co-main event?
So, Bill, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch this, and there's a reason that I didn't go back and watch it. Is I didn't see Escobar doing much against Kovalevich. She's so good on the feet. Solid ground game, good takedown defense, but she's in the upper echelon of fighters, especially in the women's strawweight division. So I didn't think it was worth it to go back and watch this one. But Bill, why don't you describe to me what happened? It looks like she was pretty dominant just looking at the scores.
Yeah, definitely. It was a dominant performance as you would expect. This was kind of a tune-up fight to get her back up into contention, and which is where she should be. She gave Joanna Jędrzejczyk a run for her money. That was a really close fight when they fought, and then she had that loss to Claudia Gadelha. So after this fight, she called out Jessica Andrade, who just demolished Claudia Gadelha last month. So I think that was a smart move by Kovalevich because, well, I don't know if it's a smart move calling out Jessica Andrade because she's a fucking monster right now. But in terms of getting back to a title shot against Joanna, which I would definitely love to see because their first fight was awesome. It was so close. I would even entertain an argument that Kovalevich could have won a decision in that fight if you had, some poor judging. But yeah, so I think a fight between her and Jessica Andrade makes sense. They're the next two in line behind Rose Namajunas. So if you put that fight together pretty soon, then you can have Joanna defending her title against the winner of that fight, maybe in late January or February, somewhere in that time frame. So exciting things for the women's strawweight division. I just kind of want to breeze over the rest of this card, Jeff, and you'll tell me if anything else kind of stood out to you. So light heavyweights Jan Blachowicz and Devin Clark. Blachowicz coming away with the rear naked choke victory. Polish fighter Marcin Held getting a pretty uneventful victory. This guy was supposed to make a big splash in the UFC, but hasn't really. Got to get a decision win in front of his hometown crowd. So good for him. Sam Alvey, another really overactive fighter who really fights too often, taking a decision loss last night or yesterday afternoon. And then there was a pretty good war between Andre Fili and Artem Lobov. And then the fight of the night fight, Kelleher and Stasiak. So out of those, Jeff, any of those jump out to you that you'd like to give your thoughts on?
Yeah, I'll give you two, Bill. And they're the two that I went back and watched. The first one was the light heavyweight bout, Jan Blachowicz. I'm probably butchering his name. Beating Devin Clark with a crazy rear naked choke. He got it from defending a takedown, and he got it standing up, actually. No hooks, it looked like it was just a python squeeze. So that was really awesome to watch. Good display of grappling. And then the fight of the night, Brian Kelleher versus Damian Stasiak. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, close enough. We'll call it a win.
Yeah, Kelleher was really dominant in all areas, looking like the bigger dude out there too. They looked like they were a weight class apart, so that was crazy. And just he kept going for this guillotine from the top, but it wasn't working. But his striking was good enough where he demolished Stasiak there. But yeah, Bill, any of these that you want to elaborate on?
No, not really. But what's funny is if you look at that finish, the Jan Blachowicz, that rear naked choke over Devin Clark, it looks just like a schoolyard choke. Like he's just messing with the guy on the playground. But it looked like such a powerful squeeze. I would never want to know what that feels like. So pretty decent card. I mean, if you had nothing to do in the middle of the day, pretty entertaining. Nothing to write home about. But we got a really interesting card coming up next week. I would never think of any of these matchups, to tell you the truth, but now that they've been put together, I really kind of like how this card shaped up. So it's Fight Night 119, and it's in Sao Paulo, Brazil, headlined by Derek Brunson and Lyoto Machida, which is a really interesting matchup because Derek Brunson is so hot and cold, and he has that rush forward style. You remember his fight with Robert Whitaker where he just ran face first across the octagon. Obviously a bad strategy to have against Lyoto Machida, who's one of the best counter strikers in the history of the sport, but coming up off a long layoff. So what are your thoughts on this main event, Jeff?
This is going to be awesome. I almost said awful by mistake.
Awfully awesome is what it's going to be.
Yes, the double A. So, yeah, dude, this is going to be really good. Machida, he's been out of the cage for a while, but he's always dangerous. He's got that karate background, so you know he can move in and out quickly, effectively, without getting hurt. And Brunson, man, Brunson's just fun to watch. I remember seeing a couple of his fights. You know, he just comes forward, and like you said, probably not the best strategy against Machida. But Bill, this one is probably one that's going to stay on the feet. I can see this one going 5 rounds if it goes for Machida, but if Brunson wins, he's going to have to win early.
Yeah, it's a really interesting matchup the more you think of it. Super technical. Brunson obviously has great wrestling, but he loves pressuring guys with a stand-up. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there. And Machida has great takedown defense and obviously incredible counter striking. So when I first saw this matchup, I was kind of like, why is this a main event? But then the more I kind of let it simmer and sink in, I'm really excited for it. So I'll actually be out in Arizona during this fight card. So again, looking for some recommendations. If anybody knows some good locations out in Arizona to watch the fights, I'm open to it. And then co-main event is another fight I never really would have thought of as being really interesting, but it really is. And that's Damian Maia and Colby Covington, two fighters who have both been criticized for being kind of boring grapplers. And Damian Maia, of course, coming off that very uneventful match with Tyron Woodley, where, you know, neither of them really did anything the whole time. They just kind of respected each other too much. And Colby Covington coming off what a lot of people would say is a lay and pray victory over Dong Young Kim, I believe. But I thought it was really impressive that Colby Covington was able to hold him down the entire fight. I know we've gone over that, how there's not a lot of respect for high-level wrestling and the ability to hold down fighters at this level. But it's definitely way more challenging than it seems. And I personally have a lot of respect for that style. But I kind of wonder what's going to happen here. Is Colby Covington going to want to take this fight to the ground with Damian Maia? And, is Maia going to be able to enact his game plan? Of course, he is a really big welterweight. I just think this is a really interesting matchup. I love, when two really high-level grapplers get put against each other. I always think it'll be interesting and usually ends up in a stand-up fight, but I can't really see that happening with either of these guys. So I don't know what's going to happen here, and that intrigues me, Jeff. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I kind of want this to be a grappling matchup. I don't want to see too much stand up with this fight. I want to see who's got the better fighting on the ground. And I'll be honest with you, Bill. It's hard to pick between these guys, but Demian Maia, man, he's got such good jujitsu. We've talked about it time and again on this show how he kind of melts over you. I think there's a metaphor you used, how he melts over you like butter on hot toast.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be good, because he can fight off his back too, with his guard game and stuff. So this is gonna be really, really interesting for the hardcore fans who can appreciate grappling. If you're more casual, maybe this isn't the fight. Maybe this is the fight you take a bathroom break for, or you answer the door to buy the pizza that you just ordered.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand how people wouldn't be into it, but I'm really looking forward to this one a lot. Another one I'm looking forward to, always fun to see on a card, is Jim Miller taking on Francisco Trinaldo, who's just a beast of a lightweight. So that's an interesting fight. Any thoughts on that one, Jeff? I'm just kind of just kind of looking over this card right now, seeing what else jumps out to me. But any thoughts on your local Jersey boy, Jim Miller, on this card here?
Yeah, dude, Jim Miller, always fun to watch. Trinaldo is very, very talented. So that fight is actually on my radar too. I can see that one being fight of the night, man.
Yeah, you got a couple of potentials for fight of the night here. Obviously, Jim Miller's always a contender anytime he's on the card. You got Rob Font and Pedro Munoz. That'll be an interesting fight. Thiago Santos and Jack Hermanson. That could be a slugfest. And then you got John Lineker in the middle of this card hanging out here, who has crazy knockout power, taking out Marlon Vera, who's a really slick fighter. And you got Antonio Carlos Jr. hiding down at the bottom of this card, who's one of the best grapplers on the planet. For those who don't know, submitted Gary Tonin in Submission Underground recently, or maybe it wasn't very recently, but a couple of months ago. But not a lot of people submitting Gary Tonin these days. He did it with a flying triangle, which was pretty badass. I don't know if you caught that one, Jeff. So any of these fights jumping out at you that I just read off here?
Yeah, dude, I definitely want to check out the Carlos Jr. fight, and also I want to see that flying triangle in action. I also am really excited for this John Lineker fight. I can't remember if he's fought since he lost to TJ Dillashaw in December of last year.
Yeah, I can look that up right now, depending how quick the internet goes. But I don't think he has. And that was a really impressive performance by Dillashaw. He had some crazy takedown setups in that fight, and just kind of he was looking to make a statement against John Lineker. And yeah, Lineker hasn't fought since the Dillashaw fight, which was December 30th of last year. I remember I was in Daytona Beach watching that fight. That was the Ronda Rousey Amanda Nunes card. So it seems like forever ago that Ronda Rousey was in the octagon, and probably will be forever until she's there again. But anything else jumping out on this card for you, Jeff?
I can see. I think that's about it for my end. But anything else jumping out at you? Because you mentioned some really, really interesting fights that I'm excited for.
Yeah, there's some slugfests on here. The Thiago Santos and Jack Hermanson fight, I feel like could be a real bar burner. Thiago Santos is one of those guys, like when he's on, he's really on, and he looked phenomenal in his last fight against Gerald Meerschaert, who's another top prospect out of Duke Rufus's gym, and we've kind of covered him. I kind of picked him to be one of the breakout stars this year, earlier in the year, and so the fact that Santos was able to demolish him the way he did was really impressive. So he probably has one of the worst tattoos in the history of MMA, or in the history of tattoos. That just giant Thor hammer in the middle of his chest. But the guy's an exciting fighter, so you can't take that away from him. Any other thoughts on this, Jeff, before we move on here?
I got nothing for you, Bill. But it's looking like a better card than yesterday's card. Also, quick remark about yesterday's card. It was on Fight Pass. So that kind of put me off a little bit because I don't have Fight Pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I really just didn't want to like pay the money to just for one card. Although Fight
Yeah.
Pass does offer a lot of interesting stuff.
Dude, I'm a big proponent of Fight Pass. You could watch like all the old seasons of Tough on there. You could go watch any fight pretty much on demand. They got the old Pride cards. They have some new series on there that they did just for Fight Pass. Because personally, the way I look at it is you pay, I don't know, $8 or $9 a month for Netflix. I watch Netflix. I'll watch maybe 2 movies a month, something like that. And, whatever TV series somebody recommends, I might check out. But, Fight Pass is pretty much the same price. And, if there's one or two good cards on there, I find it's worth it. So Fight Pass is pretty cool. And usually it's just the international cards that are on there. And then it's also worth it for the early prelims because, you get guys like Cub Swanson and stuff fighting on there. So you don't want to miss those. if you're hanging out on a Saturday night, before the pay-per-view start or whatever, having a couple of drinks at home, you can do that, which is exactly what I'm doing now, Jeff. And Jeff, you know me as well as anybody. And two things I don't really like are vodka and fruity sweet things. I am currently drinking both of those things right now, and it's in the form of Deep Eddy's peach vodka. So I think I talked about Deep Eddy's on the show before. They have a sweet tea vodka that's really good. You could just drink it on the rocks, and it's really smooth for vodka. It doesn't taste like vodka, which is a plus. When I do drink vodka, it's usually Tito's. So I find Deep Eddy's to be comparable to Tito's. It's also from Austin, Texas. So they're doing something right with vodka down there, Jeff, because they make vodka that I drink. And, that's not something a lot of people can claim. So two companies from the same city somehow have made something I typically don't like into something that I like. So I'm drinking this Deep Eddy's. This is the peach flavor. So they make all their vodka with real fruit. I guess they let it ferment in there or whatever the process is for making flavored vodka. And what I did is I just poured it over some ice and I put a little bit of iced tea with it. So it's just like a peach iced tea. And I'm drinking it out of a mason jar. And that's not to be trendy or anything, or because I'm currently in the South. That's just because I legitimately did not have any clean glasses and I didn't feel like doing dishes before we did the podcast here. But Deep Eddy's vodka, I highly recommend this stuff. If you're a vodka drinker, it's really nice. I'm going to check out just the regular vodka to see what that's like, because so far I've only had the peach and I've had the sweet tea. I actually want to get the sweet tea and the peach and just combine those and drink that straight and just get totally fucking obliterated on vodka. That'd be nice. I gotta start getting creative now, Jeff. I've been sanding furniture for the last 9 years, it feels like. And so Deep Eddy's, thank you for helping me get through all these DIY projects. Probably not as cleanly as I should be getting through them, but I am getting through them, and I'm really enjoying this flavored vodka. So, Jeff, any thoughts on flavored vodka? Do you maybe, is this something you would maybe want to check out? And if not, have you been sipping on anything interesting yourself lately?
Yeah, I'm actually. I do enjoy vodka. It's good. I feel like it's smooth. Flavored vodka is even better. So Deep Eddy's is definitely something I want to check out. And unfortunately, Bill, I haven't had time to really have something stronger than water. But what I do want to pick up is where I work, like right across the street. There's a store, and they sell these. They're like jars of fruit that have just been sitting in alcohol. So I'll probably end up getting one of those because they have a couple of different assortments. One is like vodka and peaches. The other is I forget what the others are, but they look really good. So I'll probably be chewing on those. But those are the scarier ones, Bill. Those are the ones that sneak up on you, and then
Yo, for sure.
you go to stand up, and you just end up on the floor, and you don't know how you got there.
Well, you know how you got there. It's from buying fruit in a jar from the store that's been soaking in alcohol. But yeah, that stuff would kick you in the ass, because when the fruit's fermenting in there, I feel like it ups the proof a little bit. So that's why I was really into the infusions for a while. I plan on getting back into that when I get settled into the new house, so I can try some new and interesting things. I was doing some fun stuff when I first moved down here to Florida. I was infusing ginger and coffee beans and all this stuff. I was doing those drink recipes. Those days are gone now, Jeff. I'm going to be a father soon, so I don't have time to be making videos and stuff like that. But I do have time for some interesting, easy drink recommendations. As you all know, if you're regular listeners of the show, I do enjoy a lot of whiskey and bourbon. So please send your recommendations my way, especially if you know some local whiskeys or local craft beers out in Arizona, since that's where I'll be for the next week and a half or so. And I'll try to do an episode from there. Jeff, any closing thoughts on this episode here before we wrap things up?
Dude, I am just counting down. There's one more weekend before I go to UFC 217, Bill, so I'll be able to give you my count on, what I did, the matchups, because I intend to be there for every single matchup. UFC events when you go live, and you yourself have been to a couple. It turns into an all-day thing, but it's super fun. So can't wait, Bill.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. You got to catch all of them. Even when I went in Japan, it started at like 8 in the morning. I was sitting there with my beer ready for the first fight. It came out so disoriented. It came out, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was hammered and like walking around wondering why it was light outside. It was great. But yeah, you're going to have an awesome time. So hopefully we get another episode in before that big UFC pay-per-view. We could break down the GSP return and Bisping fight and the Ioane on Jacek Rose Namajunas fight. Really awesome, really stacked card, which is great that Madison Square Garden is getting that card. Hopefully the New York State Athletic Commission doesn't fuck this one up like they've been doing lately. You're embarrassing me, New York, my home state. You got to get your shit together. All right. So you guys know how to get a hold of me on social media. It's at MMA on the Rocks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. If you want to get a hold of Jeff, it's at animal_Wilson on Twitter. So go ahead and reach out to him. Let us know what you're thinking and drinking. Give us some thoughts on your fights if we missed anything on the fights. And definitely send your drink recommendations our way. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.